Hello everybody, welcome to our online course about makerspaces in primary schools. My name is Katrin and I'm honored to tell you a little bit about our project that we are implementing here in Germany. It's a makerspace that we're implementing in a primary school. Mediale Pfade, an organization for media education, is the German partner of the DOIT project. We have implemented the Future Monster Lab with very young children in the previous years, and we've learned a lot about project-based learning and how to actually work with younger children on entrepreneurial skills for young social innovators in an open digital world. And because our engagement in DOIT, we were asked by Save the Children to be the partner for a new project, a makerspace in a primary school. So today we would like to tell you a little bit about our learnings and how we're actually implementing this. So a makerspace is an open workspace and basically a lab for everybody, for everyone. The idea is to learn about digital fabrication and have access to the modern digital manufacturing process. So makerspaces basically can be a room where you find different tools, you find different machines, and you find or you have access to processes that allow you to individually design something that you need in order to solve a problem. We have many different examples here in Germany and all over Europe. For example, the Fab Lab, Happy Labs. There are makerspaces in public libraries that are accessible. And the idea of makerspaces is becoming more and more popular in university, for example, for job orientation, but also simply for people that would like to find their own solutions for a problem they're having. Let's say if they don't want to throw away something, they could go into a makerspace and make a spare part. Typical devices in a makerspace are a 3D printer, a laser cutter, or a soldering station, and we're going to dive deeper into that and see what we can do in a makerspace, specifically in primary schools. A very important part of a makerspace is also that the knowledge gathered in this makerspace is being documented and gladly shared with others. The idea of a makerspace is all about open knowledge, and if somebody found a solution to something, the idea is to document it and to actually make this knowledge accessible, which is also why media education is a very big part of having a makerspace, and learning about digital media production in order to document knowledge is a very vital part of the project that we're having. So let's start the tour. As you can see, I am walking outside of the room to actually be able to go inside again. And this is the school. So we received 2 rooms from the school where we were able to build our makerspace. And we're walking inside now. And what I'll do first is to give you an overview of the rooms, and then we're going to go into details of the different techniques. So you see here the makerspace. Our makerspace is divided into 2 parts. We have a makerspace, a workshop, and we also have a media lab or a media workshop, which is part of the computer room of the school. So here we are in the makerspace in the workshop. We're going to go into details in a bit, and now we're entering the computer room, which we transformed into our media room. So you already see there's a green screen in the corner. You see a sound booth and lots of fun stuff. All right, let's go back into the workshop so I can explain to you a little bit what is happening here. Right in the corner, you can see the actual workshop with all the tools that we have. So you have all sorts of hammers and pliers and anything you need to actually work with your hands. What we did was we have, of course, all the tools in different sizes. So the children that are smaller will actually have tools that fit into their hands. And then the adults that work there, they also have tools that fit into their hands. Very important, especially in those times, is our sink, so kids can actually wash their hands. Here you can see the tool wall. Every single item in the makerspace is color coded. Green means that you can use the tool without asking anybody. Yellow means you may use the tools once the person or the teacher or whoever is the facilitator allows you to do it. And red means you cannot use this if you are a child because it might be dangerous. So as you can see, pliers and those things are labeled with yellow because we don't want anyone to just walk in and take anything, but of course the children are allowed to use them once we need them for a specific project. We have everything in different sizes, so you can see the workbank we have in 2 different sizes, so little children are allowed or are able to use the smaller one. Here in the corner you see our corner of, this is the treasure corner, old devices that we are using to actually take them apart to save old, save things that might still work, the cables and stuff. Here you see the soldering station, you see all the equipment for that. We have all the equipment, we have cables, anything you need to build electric circuits, and I already mentioned the sink, very important for the hygiene in the school. Another important thing is the documentation. Every single child that we're working with had their own workbook, which you can see here. And the idea is that this is kind of a logbook for their progress. They can put in their ideas. They will also get the rules or any instructions that they need for a specific station. They get it on a paper and they can actually glue it into their book. So in the end, they take back their book home and they can see everything that they have done and also anything that they have produced, ideas and so on, which will all be gathered in this logbook. In here, you can see an empty box and it's going to have a stitch machine inside. Funny enough, the stitch machine, because of Corona, was delivered to my house, so this is where it's sitting right now, but it will go here. And this is going to be the central element of the Makerspace. It's the laser cutter. It came to the space literally 2 days before the school shut down, so we have not been able to take it out and get instructions on how to use it, but we're all super pumped about learning how to operate this laser cutter. So we hope to do another video once it's there. Here I have actually put up a soldering station. You can see that all the equipment is there and the kids can use it and learn. So this is the 3D printer, another really important machine in our Makerspace. And over there you see the computer corner, and the idea is basically for the children or for the students to digitalize their ideas and to design their ideas on the computer within the programs, and then with a USB stick walk over to the 3D printer, let's say, or the laser cutter, transfer the data, and then print out or cut out whatever they need. Here you see one of the results of our Makerspace. This is a poster that the students made. It's an interactive poster. The way we work in the Makerspace is that we always start with a specific question. In this case, the topic of the day was participation, and what are areas in the school or in the family that the children would like to have more of a voice. They would like to participate in decisions. So this is what we discussed. Afterwards, we learned about electric circuits and we learned about how electricity flows. And then we combined the topic with the technical knowledge that we just gained about soldering electric circuits, and we created interactive posters. So every student made a poster and explained to us what are the topics they would like to participate in more. And they created an electric circuit with a switch, and you can see the little lights. They light up if you press a certain switch with the name of a student, so you can learn what is it the specific student would like to participate in more. That was really fun. The students loved it and they really enjoyed the soldering part and understanding how the electric circuits work, and to create their poster and to make their voices heard. This was the other group. They created a similar poster. This time it was about participation in school. So they, many of the students, they're 10 years old, they said they would like to have more media involvement in the school. They would like to be able to use their mobile phones not only in class but also outside of class. That was a huge issue for them. They would like to learn more with a computer and use in general more digital devices. So that's what they expressed on this poster. Here you see a chair round. This is how we usually start the class. So we start in a circle and have everyone come into the Makerspace. We do a little check-in with everybody before we actually start working. You can see work areas here where the students can work in groups and work on their projects. On the walls you see different images about children's rights, about what is it we would like, what are the goals of the Makerspace. That's very important for us to visualize. All right, let's walk over to the media room. I already told you that this is part of the computer room that is being used by the school and by other classes, so not exclusively for the students that are in the Makerspace. And here I'm showing you, this might be really interesting for you, how the computer room looked before we actually remodeled it. It's very interesting because that's usually what you see in schools. You see a lot of tables and computers that are facing the walls. So students when they sit in front of the computer, their backs point towards the teacher, and this is a setting that does not allow much interaction. Within our model project, we changed the setting of the computer room and we build work islands that allows for group work. And we put the computers into groups so you can actually see each other when you're working. In the middle, you have a big conference table that does not have devices, so you have an opportunity to discuss a project or to write something down or to do some planning, which is super important when we want to do digital media productions. So that's how it looks now. And teachers responded really well. They loved the new setting and they're using it. Here you see the green screen setup. Really exciting for the kids to see what they can do with the green screen and transport themselves into another world and think about where is it they want to be, and immediately being able to look for a specific photo or video and transport themselves into this world. One of the skills that we discussed with the students here was what kind of images you're actually allowed to use from the internet. So talk about the rights that images have, and we suggested to them what are the sites they can find license-free images so they can build their green screen videos. We worked with different applications. So part of the media room are tablets that we purchased for this project. And we showed them how to use the green screen app but we also showed them how to use KineMaster on Android. So they would be able to also do this with their own phones at home, which is really important because not everyone might have an iPad or whatever specific tablet, but most of them have a mobile phone. So it's really important for us to suggest and use technology that they would be able to actually also implement on their own devices at home. So of course we have a little bit of a professional setup here with lights, which is important to add to the fun, but also to show them how professional media production can work and what is actually important in terms of light. Here you see another really exciting box. It's the sound booth, and the sound booth actually has a USB Rode microphone in there, which is a pretty good microphone actually. And what this sound booth does is it absorbs all the extra sounds that you have when you're doing a recording, and it puts out a really nice quality of sound. What we're doing with the kids with the students is they're able to write their own stories, write their own whatever little sketches. They go into the sound booth and they make their recordings, while one of the students from the group is making sure the recording is correctly inputted in Audacity, which is the program that we're using, an open source program that allows the students then to not only do the recording, but afterwards edit the recording, cut the recording, to make it sound really high quality and something that they can be proud of. The students actually started with the sound unit in the first class. It was the first thing they've ever done in the Makerspace. I remember I told you before that in the Makerspace we talked about participation and what the kids would like to talk about, participate in more. Now in the immediate group, we started off with the rules of the Makerspace, and we tried to, or the students then took the rules of safety and they worded them, they put them into their own words, and they actually made recordings about how they would put a rule and what they consider important about a specific rule, or why is it important. Some of them made their own songs, some of them made an interview. It was super fun to immediately see the creativity that the kids had in using the sound booth. They were extremely excited about doing this. Some of the rules that we actually put into a sound was that we would like to create a culture where mistakes can happen. So we want to encourage the students to immediately tell us when something breaks or something falls down. Sometimes the students, they're afraid to get punished, so they don't tell the adults immediately, but we're trying to really create a culture of no fear and honesty. So students talked a lot about why it is important to actually report any damages, which is important so other students don't get hurt or a device can be replaced. Of course, always recognizing how important it is to handle everything with care. So now that we know what a makerspace is, we would like to dive a little deeper into what's educational making. The idea of educational making is that the makerspace as such is not a subject that you know, but it's a space for learning, and it's more of a pedagogical approach than actually like a specific subject. It's a connection point. It's like a hub for different subjects and for interdisciplinary project learning, which is the idea of having a makerspace in a school is for different subject teachers to be able to go into there and connect the content that they're having in this class with pedagogical making, with projects that the kids can do in order to internalize the idea of a content and not just learn the content by itself. So the other idea of educational making is to bring into the mix dealing with social issues. I've already explained a little bit that a makerspace is a space where you can go in, recognize a problem, or you already come in with a question, and you find solutions for your problem, and you find all sorts of forms of expression. It might be that you have this idea of a question about what you can do personally to deal with climate change, for example, and what is it you can do personally to contribute to solving the issue. And within the makerspace, you find several inspirations to actually do your part. And it could be print out spare parts with a 3D printer to repair something in order not to throw it away. But it could also be to make a digital media production, to make aware of the problem and share it with others. The other part of having a makerspace in a school is, of course, to focus a lot on teamwork and collaboration. Let's say in a makerspace, we're looking at different competencies that we would like the kids to accomplish, and teamwork and collaboration is definitely always one of them. And we're offering not only the collaboration in technical issues, but also in the artistic issues. So part of the makerspace is also to just find your own voice and express yourself in what you would like to do. In our makerspace, the one that we're implementing, since we're doing it with the organization Save the Children, we're focusing on the topics of participation and children's rights and sustainability. And every time we enter the makerspace, we do so starting talking about the topic. So we don't go in there and we learn a technique, but we deal with a certain topic, and then we find solutions for this topic or for the questions we're having within the makerspace. So I've already talked a little bit about why we want a makerspace in a school. Here's a little bit of an overview of what we're trying to do. One of the main ideas is empowerment, for sure. The idea is to empower children to find their own solutions for the questions they're having and to unlock the potential, the creativity they have within themselves. Future skills is a huge component of pedagogical making. We would like to foster creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, which means we're not going in there coming with ready solutions, but we're rather igniting a process of finding the solutions, and they can be completely different depending on the child. And participation. The idea is for children to come into the makerspace and confidently operate the machines and the techniques that we're offering in the makerspace. And have them come in with a question and know what the process is to find a solution by themselves. The second idea, the further idea is, of course, to find out, and this is where the model project comes in, how this makerspace can have an impact on the school development as such. So by going in there with a model class, which in our case right now is a fifth grade and seventh grade class, we would like to see how what we're doing in the makerspace can actually impact the way they're learning in the other classes. By also involving the teachers a lot, we are trying to show how teaching can work in a different way, and hopefully more and more teachers are going to come in and use the makerspace for their own classes. That's one of the goals that we're having. Where does the educational making fit into the school context? The idea is not to only think about the STEM education, but we are very strongly focusing also on the A in the STEAM work, so the arts, which means we're trying to ignite social learning, and we also try to offer projects that develop artistic skills, reading skills, writing skills. The idea is to make teaching and learning in digital worlds tangible. So you go into a space and you understand, you can touch things, you understand how processes work, you actually, you create some data on the computer and you put it on a USB stick, and then you walk over to the 3D printer and you see how what you've created on the computer is coming out in the 3D printer. So it makes the process very logical for you. For example, we're opening old devices and we're trying to open black boxes of devices and see what's in there. We're looking at what kind of cables we can find, and we're trying to also take away the fear that these devices might impose because they're closed and usually you can't look inside. So that's basically what how it fits into education in a school context, because we have a room within the school and the children are visiting the room, but they're taking their skills outside of their room into their regular classes, into their school context, and of course into their family context. And I've already mentioned that the project we're doing is closely related to teacher development, and hopefully by involving teachers and training teachers, they're going to have the confidence to go into the makerspace and use it for their own classes. How do we actually work in our makerspace in a school? Now, we started the second half this year, 2020, so in February, I believe, and then I think the Corona crisis came, and we were unfortunately not able to go back into the school immediately. But I still want to explain to you a little bit what we started with and how the project was planned, and hopefully once we're allowed to go back, we're just going to continue with the plan. Plus, we're developing alternative plans to focus a little bit more on teacher training, and hoping that the makerspace can also actually be a resource and help with the current situation. I would like to tell you that all the materials that we're developing are open source materials, which means they're available to you. The way we're working right now, or we've started working, is that we are working with 2 5th grade classes, 22 children each, and 1 7th grade course, 13 children in the course, or teenagers. And each of these groups are receiving 10 basic inputs. They're 3 periods long, so more or less 2 full hours and a little bit. And those inputs are basically designed for the students to get to know and use the Makerspace. We have separated the inputs, and we have 5 inputs inside the Maker workshop and the other 5 inputs inside the media workshop. I've already explained to you that sharing knowledge, documenting knowledge is very important in a Makerspace, which is why our Makerspaces actually consist of 2 spaces. We have the actual Makerspace, and we're having a media workshop. Once those basic inputs are done, we are going to implement a project week, which is a longer period of time. It's a 3-day project week where the students are actually developing their own projects in teams in a self-directed process. The idea is during the inputs to get the students familiar with the techniques, with the machines, and then for them to be able to use all the techniques, everything that's in the Makerspace, and develop their project based on their own questions that they're developing. Part of the model project is also an afternoon invitation. So once a week we're opening the Makerspace for children who would like to come back and maybe finish a project or try out something new. What's the content, you may ask? Of course, I would like to tell you that. I'm starting with the making part. So remember, we had 5 inputs for that. In the first input, we disassembled old devices. So we opened old computers, old printers, just check it out, what's in there, what kind of technology can you find. By actually disassembling those devices, we're also learning about electric circuits by figuring out how electricity flows, and that's gonna be handy in the next input. In the second class, we then again put together circuits using some of the old components that we saved, and we learned about the technique of soldering and electric circuits. We started the class by talking about what is important to the children and what are the main issues where they would like to participate more in the decision-making process in their families or at school. And we've had a discussion about that, and we gathered the ideas, and then all the children were building an interactive poster. The children came in and they actually soldered and built simple electric circuits and even added a switch. So we combined making their ideas heard with the actual teaching of the soldering technique. The next class was all about 3D printing, trying to figure out how to actually fabricate a piece that might be missing somewhere in the computer and then print it out in a 3D printer and check out how this works. Another unit that is part of the Makerspace unit is the introduction to coding via the stitch machine, which is something that really I'm excited about, because the idea is to also implement different fabrics, different techniques, and stitching and working with textile might be something that is not such a normal or logical approach to learning how to code. The idea is to use an open program that's called Turtle Stitch, and in Turtle Stitch you can create your own designs by using code blocks, by using coding language. So you create your design in the computer, and then you can stitch it onto a piece of fabric, which is super cool because you can see immediately how data transforms into something that you can then actually wear, let's say a t-shirt or something. The last unit is the laser cutter. We're going to design things on the computer and cut them out. The idea is to basically have every child create their own box, design it and cut it out on the laser cutter in order to then gather or collect their own little projects and have their little personal space in the Makerspace. So these are the units for the Makerspace. And now, what are the learning objectives? The idea is always to get to know the digital manufacturing process, understand how the process is from an individual idea, and to put it into a model that is usually designed on a computer by whatever program you're using, or by coding or drawing something, depending on what you're trying to do. And then actually use that data and transfer it to a machine and see what the machine does with your data, and to figure out how you can have control over the machine by feeding the machine a certain data. Of course, all involved in that is basics of electronics, and what can be then later on talked about is robotics and sensors. All these things are topics that we can add on to our basic inputs that we're doing of designing, prototyping, transferring data, and then having the machine do what we want it to do. Let's move on to the media space. What are we doing in the media space is we're talking about sound editing. We have a sound booth with a really nice USB microphone. I'll be showing that to you later. We have mobile sound and mobile recording devices that enable the children or the kids to make their own recordings, make polls. We are working with video productions with a green screen, so we can create our own moving picture content. We are also covering the whole topic of social media, which is very important to have the kids understand how social media works and what are the do's and don'ts. And we're going to implement, or we're going to actually create an Instagram channel about the Makerspace with the students, where they explain what the Makerspace is all about, what are the processes, and basically have a sort of documentation on Instagram. The content for the last inputs are 360-degree photography. The idea is for the students to create like a virtual tour of their school, and then to use co-spaces to actually have them create digital spaces or augmented spaces. So the idea is basically for them to take a 360-degree photo of their schoolyard and then being able to develop that schoolyard digitally with objects that they would like to see, to then present it maybe to their school principal and to have a voice when it comes to participation of schoolroom design. Those are the units that we are planning for the media space. Learning objectives are, of course, producing creative media to know how it technically works and use the tools, but also really focus on digital storytelling. Try to figure out how you can make your successes visible, to tell your stories, how you can give yourself a voice and share it with others. But we're also, and that's very important, implementing media topics such as research, safe publication in the internet. What is it that can happen? What about the rights for images or for content? What about personal rights? What is it I want to show of myself in public spaces and not? I guess I came to an end. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much. All the material is published under a CC license, so you're allowed to share it. You're encouraged to share it. Thank you very much for your attention.